Zechariah Tiemens says, if you could go back and witness any one event in human history, what would it be? The resurrection. The opening, yeah. Yeah, that's what I would be. I think that's what it would be. Would answer some questions for me. By the way, this is the Zechariah Tiemens section of the show. I notice he's in our comment section. He asked 6 questions in a row, and every one of them was so good that I just decided to take the whole block. So here we go. That would be question number 1. Zechariah Tiemens. Question number 2 in the Zechariah Tiemens hour of the Zechariah Tiemens show here is, should we convert to the metric system? That's actually a really great question. The answer to which is no. You look at the map of the world, right? And it's like here are the countries that have adopted the metric system, the world. Here are the countries that have not adopted the metric system. America and like Mozambique. I don't know what the other one is, but it's something like that. So why should it be America and Mozambique not converting to the metric system when everybody else is? And the answer is because it doesn't matter how many people are wrong. When you're right, it's okay to be by yourself. The reason, in my opinion, that we don't connect to the metric system is because the metric system has a mathematical elegance to it that appeals to people with simple minds. It appeals to Europeans and weenies who like to measure things in meters and there's always I can't ever really get into the metric system without getting into that kind. It's a little bit of a German accent on the metric system, isn't there? Don't you find there's a little tiny bit of a German accent on the metric system? That we had everything down to the meter, the kilometer. We get the kilometers, we get the meters, we get the grams, we get it's just like everything's just so frickin' precise. 10 of these is another 10 of those is a tenth of these. Look how easy it is to do the math. Look how easy it is to do the math. Fantastic. Yes. Did you realize that 312 meters is 0.312%? of 0.312 of a kilometer? That's astonishing, really. How remarkable. So you're saying that 1,000 kilometers is exactly consists of 110 kilometer path? Well, that's amazing. Well, who cares? Who cares? We exist in a culture that has a history, and of all the things that we share as a culture, the one thing we share as a culture, the one thing that really, there are many things that you share as a culture, but the one thing that a culture has to have in common in order to be a culture is the language. It's the language. And so I do not have to deal, look, if you want to be for scientific operations, absolutely, metric system, fine. If it's easier for you, great. If it's easy to divide by 10, that's fine. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I know enough about math to tell you that the metric system is designed on base 10, right? It is a decimal system. It's 10 of these, gives you another decimal point, and so on. 10 is not a good number. From a mathematical point of view, 10 is a kind of a bastard of a number. We have 10, we use 10 because we have these, right? If we had a base 12 system, 12 is elegant. 12, you look at the compass, you divide the compass into 12 parts. We already do that. North, northeast, east, northeast, we break everything up into 12s. 12 is awesome. 1 times 12, 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, 4 times 3, 12 is cool. 10 is a kind of an unstable number. We're going to base a metric system on that. Sure, okay. So you don't even really get your scientific jollies out of it. The meter is not, there's nothing magical about the meter. It's not like the meter is 1/1,000,000th of the diameter of the earth or some meter. It's just an arbitrary thing like a yard. It's no less arbitrary, frankly, than the distance between the king's nose and his thumb. It's simply a rod that's kept in a vault someplace in Europe that they all get down and worship, and we know it to the angstrom. Fantastic. But it's not useful. Who cares? I'm a pilot. I fly at feet. The international rules of aviation are determined by by the winners in World War II, and they spoke English. That used to be Great Britain as well. So I know I'm at 30,000 feet, which is also 10,000 meters, but if I'm at 29,500 feet, I know the difference between that and 9,000. It's a more nuanced metric. Feet, measuring altitude in feet is that's 3 times more precise than measuring in meters. There's 3 feet in a meter, right? So if I'm at 9,000 meters, I'm at 27,000 feet. But what if I'm at 26,993 meters? You know what I'm saying? The foot is a better metric than the meter because it's more precise. Likewise, the Fahrenheit distinction is more refined than a centigrade distinction. There's 212 degrees between 0 and the boiling point of water, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a finer thing. I can tell the difference between 78 and 79 degrees Fahrenheit, but the difference between 32 and 33 degrees centigrade is twice or 3 times that difference. So it's a better system. But this is all trivial and it's all nonsense, because what it really comes down to is it comes down to the language. It comes down to the language. Would you walk a kilometer for the woman you love? Would you, is a millimeter as good as a kilometer? Don't you find it just a little bit sterile and kind of weenie-esque to take all of the beauty of the language and simply chuck it so that you can divide by 10 when you're never going to divide by 10 anyway, honestly? Don't you miss it? Don't you miss? I missed it by a mile. Don't you miss? 6 feet under. He was 2 meters under. Don't you miss it? Don't you miss all this stuff? Don't you miss all of the history and the poetry of the language? Don't you miss? A pound of flesh. Do you say? What do you say? Do you say 0.6 kilograms of flesh? You know what? Don't you miss it? Don't you miss the beauty and the grace and the fluidity of the English language when it's unleashed and it's using its own native tongue and language? I kind of miss, I'll be honest with you, I miss fathoms and leagues. I think they're interesting. I like fathoms. I like the fact that we're measuring something that's the height of a man. This is a fathom deep. It's 6 feet. It's a league. It's 3 miles. I use nautical miles. Somebody pointed out in the comment section. I use nautical miles when I'm in the air, and I use statute miles when I'm on the ground. Do you know how difficult this is to convert these two things? Not at all. Do you know how hard it is for me to convert knots into miles per hour? It doesn't matter. I don't need to know it to the decimal place. I know that if I'm flying at 90 knots, I'm doing about 97, 98 miles an hour, 102, 100 something. Who cares? I travel in knots. I fly in feet. I miss things by inches. I walk a mile. I weigh pounds, and I miss things. I don't. Wish my sweetheart were not 7,000 kilometers away. Yep, she's 6,293.2 kilometers away. She's miles and miles and miles away is much better to me, frankly. And I don't get it. And I think it's just, and I'll go even further since I'm wallowing in my own crapulence tonight, and I'll just say this. Kilometers are for weenies, Or we traveled 85 kilometers. Congratulations. How many inches is that? Give me some miles. Give me something big. Something that, it takes a V8 to travel a mile. You can travel a kilometer in a golf cart. I want some miles. I want something with some substance to it. This just like I've never actually put that into words before, but that's actually what it is about the metric system. It's the German accent to it. It's the precision. It's the elimination of romance and the substitution of a false precision which you'll never use. And this idea, once again, it's this kind of moral advantage, right? It's like, well, we're morally superior to you in the United States because our metric system is divisible by 10. Fabulous. Really? What is the meter? What do you mean? Well, what is it? It's a rod that we keep. What's the length determined by? Nothing. Oh, it's kind of like the foot then. Yes, but our system is divisible by 10. If you take 10 meters, you have 10 meters. And if you have 1,000 meters, then you have a kilometer. Swale. You take 6,000 feet, you got a nautical mile. And I don't need to know how many feet, or 5,280 feet. If I'm dealing with miles, I'll deal with miles. If I'm going to deal with feet, I'll deal with feet. I like yards. That's another thing, right? You're on the golf course. How far is the nearest, how far is this pin? 27.9 meters. Okay, whatever. No, fathoms, leagues. Now you start talking about leagues. You know, how far away is France? Oh. 200 leagues. Now there's some romance. Now there's some flavor. There's something. Yeah, there you go. There you go, Bo Monday. Pound of bacon. A pound of bacon. How many kilograms of bacon are there in a pound of bacon? Who cares? I don't want it. No. I like the romance. I like the language. I like it, and it's not something that troubles me. You know, I don't keep pulling the car over because I can't figure out how far Austin is in miles, because I can't easily divide the number of feet by 10 or multiply it by 10 in order to, kilometers. It's just pathetic and sad. The metric system is designed for weenies by weenies, and they're going to be soon limiting their cars. They're going to put automatic limiters into their automobiles over there, which is appropriate for them. They shouldn't be allowed to travel freely on their own highways. They shouldn't be allowed to go as fast as they want to go. They should be limited to 100 kilometers per hour by the government that is determined. That's the limit that they should have. Free people, on the other hand, have big cars that don't have limits on their speed, and they go as many miles per hour as they think they can get away with. Which on Interstate 5 between, let's say, Newport Beach and, let's say, Oceanside is about 95 miles an hour. That's the speed of the traffic at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I ought to know because I've been there. Zechariah Tiemens writes, should we legalize gun silencers? Yeah, why not? Zechariah Tiemens writes, would you rather be elected president for 4 years or watch My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic in its entirety? I'd rather be waterboarded for the length of time it would take to watch My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. And I have a pretty good feeling that I wouldn't enjoy that experience at all. But I'd enjoy it better than watching My Little Pony, which is also for weenies. Is My Little Pony in the metric system? Because if it isn't, it should be. How many meters is a pony mane? Or millimeter? I guess it's centimeters. How many centimeters is the tail on a little pony? I want to know. Moving on, Zechariah Tiemens writes, do you gamble? I speed. And Zechariah Tiemens writes, is capitalism the end product of civilization? The best question ever asked in the Stratosphere Lounge, in my opinion. It is the end product of civilization as we know it. There is a potential world where capitalism will be superseded by a different system, but there's only one way that's going to happen. And strangely enough, it is, in a way, the Star Trek universe, which many people call socialist, because kind of it is. Excuse me. But we did a segment at PJTV today on 3D printing, and I've been following 3D printing. 3D printing is not something that you attach to your computer. It's not a new peripheral. It's not the iPhone. It's not like, it's not like night vision goggles or some new toy. 3D printing is the single world-changing technology. Watching the first 3D printers, which is what we're seeing today at work, is like watching the very first dot matrix printers, which I saw. 3D printing means, well, I don't have the brain, none of us do, to understand the changes that's going to write. But the fact of the matter is, with a sufficiently advanced 3D printer, you never leave the house, right? You print your clothes, you print your everything you need. You just print it. You just make it. It comes, it appears. It's the replicator. It just shows up. A door opens, out it comes. I've seen with my own eyes. You can see them with your own eyes. You can see online organs being printed in 3D, where the structure of a heart or a kidney is basically being built up, where there is a a matrix of kind of like a gelatinous matrix, which is the void, keeping open the void. And then where the kidney or the heart should be, a little 3D printer goes and deposits stem cells and builds it up. And then over the space of about 10 days, the gelatinous matrix just dissolves, and you're left with an organ. So you can print organs. You'll be able to print meat. They've already done, what was it, the $300,000 hamburger, where they made a hamburger out of muscle tissue, which was basically cloned. So essentially, folks, in the not-too-distant future, all you're going to need is the goop that you put into your 3D printer. You print guns, you print anything. You print anything. Clothes, guns, anything. If you can imagine it, you can print it. And even stuff you can't imagine, you can print it. And it's not far away. It's coming. So, why do I bring this up? Well, if you had a world of nuclear fusion, and you had a world where 3D printing was... See, here's what's interesting about 3D printing, folks. You know the first thing you print with a 3D printer? What's the first thing you would make with a 3D printer? Another 3D printer. Then you've got the Santa Claus machine. So if you had unlimited power in the form of relatively inexpensive fusion power, let's say, and the ability to print anything, you really are in the Star Trek world now. You're in a world where the cost of service, the cost of goods is essentially zero. It's zero. You rapidly can reach a world where material goods, all the way up to automobiles, is pretty near zero. At that point, capitalism may be supplanted by something else, although I don't know what. But that is the only thing that will do it. So in answer to your question, Zechariah, yes, capitalism is the end product of civilization as civilization now extends. And by the way, we are not on an upward trajectory as far as our civilization goes. Our technology is astonishing, gets more impressive every day, as we just mentioned. But our morality is falling apart, and our ability to do common math in terms of balance a checkbook has completely fallen off the map. So whether there'll be an economy here for us to see if there's something that supersedes capitalism is a pretty dicey proposition at this point. But I do believe that capitalism is the end product of civilization. I believe it's an untarnished moral good, because the essence of capitalism is, what does something cost? And the answer is, it costs what people are willing to pay for it. And when you understand that, you understand everything. That what this object costs is, it only costs what people are willing to pay for it. Once you get that place, everything makes sense, and you don't have to have 30 million people killed anymore to make sense out of something that you couldn't understand in the first place. It costs what it costs, plus enough to make it worthwhile to do again. Pretty simple. So when you hear people talking about the $15 an hour minimum wage, they're going to price themselves out of work. People say, I can't live on minimum wage. You're not supposed to live on minimum wage. Minimum wage was designed for people to get into the marketplace. It was designed for teenagers. Those jobs are not supposed to be jobs that you live on. You're not supposed to be making a living at the fry station. That's what your kids do while they go through school, to get some money and get some experience and to learn how to show up at work, and then asked to become managers or go out and get better jobs. It's the first line on a resume, not the last line on a resume. But if people want to have a cow over it and walk out and demand more than they are worth, I hate to put it that brutally, but that's the fact, then they'll find out that it'll be cheaper to make the hamburger flipping robots, and then they won't have any work at all. And we're seeing this all throughout our society right now. All over the place, we are just walking away from reality, common sense. There's a great line in a play. What play was it? It's a play about actors. It's a play about a play. It might be Noises Off, or it might be A Life in the Theater. I'd bet $1 it's one of those two. It's a play about actors and being on stage. And these two guys are having an argument about which one of them is the better actor. And I think it's the older actor who says, I'm a far better actor than you. He says, how can you say such a thing? He says, what's the most that anyone has ever paid to see you? And the guy says, £5. And he says, well, people have paid £50 to see me. I'm a 50-pound actor. You're a 5-pound actor. I'm 10 times better than you. He's right. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that he has more talent than the other guy. It doesn't even really mean that he does a better job of acting, but it does mean he has more value. And until the younger actor can prove that he's of equal or greater value by charging that much for his ticket, the older actor's right. He is worth more than the young guy because people have paid more to see him. This is why when you get into things like movie star salaries or the salaries of sports franchise guys, you say, my God, it's outrageous. Michael Jordan's getting $30 million a year or something. It's outrageous to pay Michael Jordan $30 million a year if Michael Jordan brings in $5 million a year. But if the presence of Michael Jordan on your team brings in $30 million and $1, I almost said $40 million, $50 million. It's arbitrary. If he brings in $30 million and $1 and he costs you $30 million, he's worth it. So I don't get all lathered up about these prices. These people, this market has completely fallen apart in the movie business. But Tom Cruise makes $20 million a movie and he gets it up front. And it's because Tom Cruise opens a $20 million movie. Used to. Those days I think are pretty much over. But anyway, there you go. So thank you for the Zechariah Tiemens segment. Never done that before, but there were 6 of them in a row and they were all really interesting. So I took them all down to the final 3 and then we're going.